Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us here at eBacon. We're excited to have you participate and talk a little bit more about Secure Act 2.0 and how it impacts you. And so we'll go ahead and get into the agenda for you. Just a couple of housekeeping items before I do that. Want to make sure that everybody's aware that all of the participants are in listen only mode. But we are interested in obtaining your questions. And so as you have questions throughout the webinar, by all means, use the question functionality within your GoToMeeting, and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can at the end. And if for some reason we're not able to get to all of them, we will respond to you directly to the best of our ability. Okay. All right. So here we go. So to get started, I'm Laura Hill. I'm the VP of Operations here at eBacon. One of my areas of responsibility is the 401k product offering and team. With me today, I have Akil Kassam, who is our manager of our 401k team, and he's got quite a wealth of information about the requirements and just a bunch of subject matter expertise in this particular area. Additionally, with me today, I have Logan Merrick. He is our software product manager, also responsible for the 401k team. And so between the three of us, we'll be tackling all about Secure Act 2.0. We'll be specifically talking about really what is this thing and who does it affect. We're going to talk about some of the key features, such as automatic enrollment and escalation, catch-up contributions, long-term part-time employees. We'll talk about annual statements. We'll touch a little bit on Savers Match, which is a still to be fully fledged, fully guided area of the act. We'll definitely talk a little bit about the eBacon platform, and then as I shared, we're going to give some time at the end to handle all of the questions and answers that we possibly can. So what is this thing, right? We talk about Secure Act 2.0, and it's an acronym because the government loves acronyms. And so Secure stands for Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement. It's really designed as a benefit for businesses and individuals, really looking to kind of boost participation, encourage participants to save for the future, and really leverage some of the available tax advantages. It's an Secure Act 2.0 is specifically an extension of the original Secure Act that was signed into law in December of 2022 with bipartisan support. It's nice when everybody can get along. And a lot of the provisions, and specifically the ones we're going to talk about today, are becoming active in January of 2025. Secure Act as the whole and 2.0 have had some staggering provisions that have been implemented from when it was originally signed, and really I think it's the final batch is becoming required as of 2025. As I said, it really is intended to improve retirement savings options. They also wanted to be able to provide some more flexibility for participants and owners alike, and then really want to increase the enrollment, which basically translates into encouraging participants to save more money for their future. And this particular component really has a focus on small business. Who does it impact? Oops, my bad. Everybody. This is one of the largest laws about retirement. And so it really has an impact onto every person that's involved in a 401k. But there are some specific benefits for small businesses that really can take advantage to improve the performance, the compliance, and the overall savings. We're going to cover the key provisions that we think are appropriate for and provide the most opportunity for employers. There are hundreds of pages about this particular piece of legislation, and not everything applies to everybody, however, right? And so, we really have taken a very strategic, pointed view of what the biggest components of the legislation are. Boiled it down to the ones that impact our particular client base and you guys the most, and those are the ones that we're going to be talking about today. As always, we want to encourage you that at the end of the day, You as a business really need to have a specific conversation with your specific tax advisor to make sure that you're doing all the things that you can to best leverage all of the components and pieces that are out there. We recommend that you take a peek at the online resources that are available to you, such as the IRS website. All of those things are available to really kind of target in on very specifically what happens to you. The purpose of this presentation really is to kind of give you some broad sweeping ideas, and to help you understand in particular how our product and services are going to be able to support all of these new legislations that are coming into play. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Akil and Logan, and the two of them are going to sort of tag team and talk about what the legislation, what the particular provision is, and who specifically does that piece of legislation impact, and then how does our product offering really support and enable that particular component of the required legislation.
Hi everybody, my name is Akil, and the way we're going to kind of handle the next couple of points is I'm going to go over the legislation, what it means, and then Logan's going to and tell you how a product works. In a really easy way, I'm going to kind of scare you. Logan's going to make your life feel a lot easier as the day goes on. So the first thing we're going to talk about is an automatic enrollment and escalation features and what that means to Skylight 2.0. For anybody who's never had one of these features on their plan, it simply means that when an employee becomes eligible for a 401k, instead of opting into the 401k, they need to opt out. If they don't choose to opt out, what will happen is based on the entry date of your plan. So if somebody's going to be would normally join on the first of the month. If they don't opt out, they'll be joined in at the first of the month at a flat rate, and then every year that rate will increase by 1% until you hit a cap that's determined by a plan. Employees who forget to opt out have 90 days from the day of the first paycheck to pull out their funds without being hit by a penalty. Once the 90 days have passed, they have to follow the rules set forth by the plan for when a distribution can occur. In terms of, well, this is a great feature for everybody to have. The government has said anybody who's not had a plan effective 12/29/2022 needs to have this going into effect January 1st, 2025. And that simply means if you had a plan, either your own plan or will end up with an employer plan or with us on a 401k on December 29th, 2022, you're fully covered and you don't have to worry about adding this component. Anybody who started their first 401k after that date will have to have something go live on the December 1st, 2025. January 1st, 2025. If you are an impacted client, you will be getting an email from my team in the coming weeks, both letting you know what it specifically means for you, but also going over some other plan options that you might want to utilize since you have to do this.
Yeah. And then from the software side, so that's obviously a ton to take in and a lot of pieces that are moving around. The eBacon system and what we provide is managing almost 99% of that for you. So the second bullet point there, informing participants via email and by portal, I'd imagine that as you all have a lot of questions, folks in your company have a lot of questions. We're here to help. And when folks are going to be auto enrolled, we provide them via email and as well as the portal they use to log in for their payroll or for their time and attendance, an explanation as to what's going on, where their monies are going to be going, as well as how they can opt out. Additionally, part of what we build into the software is the automatic payroll adjustments. So there's no adjustment that you as an administrator have to do. Just once they've been auto enrolled, assuming they don't opt out, it will automatically adjust their payroll and insert it into their 401k, which they can also manage from that central dashboard. It's kind of a given. That third point, you'll be able to manage your contribution changes, opt out, take the funds out, all that kind of fun stuff within the one portal. But the final piece we kind of wanted to emphasize is, we'll be going through and ensuring that default investments are in a good spot for those plan participants so that as those monies get put in, they're being invested and then they're able to, take a look at those funds. with all that kind of good stuff. So, Akil can speak more about this, but if you're an existing eBacon client and you're sitting on this call thinking, "Oh my gosh, is that me?" Don't worry, we'll be in touch, right? If you haven't already been contacted, you will be in the next few weeks. And again, if you're on the eBacon platform, all of this will be managed from within there, from the payroll deductions to the informing, all that kind of good stuff. But we will be giving a heads up and coordinating with plan administrators, business owners, and all that kind of fun stuff in the next few weeks.
So the next item we want to talk about, which isn't as far encompassing as that automatic enrollment, but it's going to impact all clientele, is some of the changes the government has made to catch-up contributions. If you don't know what a catch-up contribution is, the government says once you hit age 50, you can put more money into your 401k. It's roughly $7,000 a year extra into your 401k you can put in out of your own money to put in. What the government has done is they've added two new caveats to the catch-up contribution program. The first one is actually a benefit. So if you as an owner or the employees who are participating in the 401k are aged between 61 and 63 years of age, you'll be able to contribute an additional $3,000 on top of the existing $7,000 catch-up contribution. So that's going to give your employees a bigger chance to save and more tax deferral opportunities. The second item is going to be that if an employee is making a certain amount of income over a year and is interested in doing catch-up contributions, those catch-up contributions are now considered as lot contributions. Beforehand, an employees can make their choices between lot and traditional, and for any employee making less than $145,000, they can still make that option. But once you make over $145,000 a year, all catch-up contributions are now lot. If you don't know what a lot or traditional is, it's just simply when is your taxes going to be advantaged and how your taxes going to become considered. With traditional, your tax liability for the year you're in is reduced and your taxable income is reduced. But then any distributions out of those funds are now considered taxable. With a lot contribution, you don't see any reduction of your base income in the year you make that contribution, but you do. But then when you have that money fully in for your retirement, you don't owe any taxes on those funds when you take a distribution. So this is going to impact every single company that's out there that has a 401k. But unlike some of the other things we're talking about, which impact all employees or the majority of the employees or the company as a whole, these provisions are going to impact participants between age 61 to 63 for the additional catch-up, and then the new rules on what is considered a lot versus traditional fair catch-up contributions will only count towards employees whose 401k eligible income is $145,000 a year or more.
Yeah, and I'm want to dive in a little bit as to how our software will be able to interact with that. I see some questions coming into the chat with auto enrollment. Let me go ahead and finish up some of this slide on catch-up contributions. And Laura, if it's okay with you, I'd love to hit a couple of those since we're still at that kind of point in the presentation. And I know a lot of folks have questions about auto enrollment, and I want to make sure that we grab those while it's kind of fresh and we can back up to the slide. So just wanted to make sure, Raina, Kevin, not forgetting about y'all. Yeah, from the software perspective, right? Really, everything kind of boils back down to like the eBacon, like the little piggy ecosystem of, when we tie the payroll into the 401k system into the way that we Bacon do employee management. These thresholds, which again, employees should be consulting with tax professionals as they go into the end of the year, but we do bake in those thresholds to the actual system when they go into select contributions. So it will be baked in when they go into the 401k system and actually tell them, hey, this is where the threshold is, and this is how the monies are going to be allocated. Additionally, it'll be one of those things where we tie into that payroll. So if you're going to exceed a threshold or a contribution limit, we populate that in the system because we understand how that payroll is working for each individual. So for this one, right, we can talk all about how we can support kind of administrators, but from a employee perspective, as folks are right might be coming to you for questions, or you might be wondering how they interact. It's still baked into that 401k screen that is in the eBacon system, where it intelligently looks at how much is in their payroll and it understands where those contribution limits are at. Laura, if you wouldn't mind taking us back a slide, I think we can hit a couple of these auto enroll questions before we keep going on here. I see the first question that came in here was from Kevin, which is, will eBacon be emailing our employees directly about automatic enrollment and escalation, or will we be sending the information out for you all to send out? Akil, do you want to start hitting on that one? I'm happy to talk all day about the software, but I know
Yeah,
you've been
so
working with a couple of folks.
yep, so it's going to be a two-foot process. So when we in the coming weeks, as we roll out information, admins will be included. They'll get a lot of information. For any notices, they'll be on your dashboard as well. And then for any participants who's going to be, Logan can sell more insights into this as well. But correct me if I'm wrong, Logan, but the way it's going to work, if a participant has contact information provided to us, they will get an email about directly when they've hit their eligibility status and when that enrollment is occurring. If an employee does not have any contact information, then an email will be sent out to your admins. So then the admins can reach out to that employee, let them know, and then ideally get an email into our system so they get notified directly.
Yeah, that's spot on, Akil. So we will be sending out those emails to folks who do have emails in the system. If you don't have an email in the system, we'll send an email out to the admin. And again, these things will be popping up in the actual eBacon site. So if your folks are going in to put in time and attendance, or they're going in to check on their pay stubs or all the rest of the things that are in our system, those will be available, and there will be a notice there as well.
And I also see right now you had a question about how this is going to impact your employees. In short, it's really going to be up to each admin if they want to have a customized solution or the default solution. The default solution is going to be if you are an employee who's hired on January 1st, 2025 and onwards, you will then have to opt out. If you're somebody who was a previously hired employee, our default suggestion is not let's not have them have to be part of the automatic enrollment. However, admins can choose to have what that effective date is. Any date prior to 1/1/2025, where you say, hey, I want every single employee to go in and make a choice, and if they don't, they're going to get automatically referred. That is something we can set up.
Got it. Okay, next topic is long-term part-time employees.
So this is another not so fun one. It's going to be kind of boring, but it impacts all clients who have part-time employees and something they should be thinking about. So it used to be that employees who had part-time employees, if they had an eligibility rule that yearly be taking care of this, and if they didn't have enough hours worked in the year, that was okay, they wouldn't be eligible. What is now happening is, since the government wants more and more people to be saving up for their retirement, they changed the rules. So now what happens, if you have a part-time employee who's worked for you in between 2 and 3 years, depending on the size of your company, once they've hit 3 years, which they've worked 500 hours, or 2 years where they work 500 hours each year, they automatically become eligible. And this is going to really impact you based on how your plan has been written. If your plan says if you just have to work for 3 months and you're eligible, regardless of how many hours you worked, nothing's going to change because those employees would have been already been eligible. But if you had a rule that said employees who had to work for a year and have 1,000 hours in that year to be eligible, those employees, if they've been at the company long enough but not earning those hours on an hour yearly basis, will now be eligible.
Yep, and that eligibility calculation, once again, you're going to hear a lot of repeat theme. of it's baked into the system through payroll. So we actually count the hours that folks are working and then we ensure that eligibility. So as opposed to separate systems where 401k and payroll don't necessarily talk to each other, we actually look at those eligible hours that have been worked so that that eligibility is calculated automatically. And then that person is put into that 401k process through that software.
Um, so this is another not so fun piece, which is annual statements. Currently what we could do is that if an employee didn't log in for an annual statement and didn't opt out of getting getting a paper statement or opt into getting a paper statement, we could assume that employee was fine getting electronic statements. Most people don't like getting things in their mail. I know I don't. So we always assumed if you aren't specifically requesting a paper 401k statement, you just are fine getting the electronic statement by logging in and generating whatever you need. What the ILS is now saying is if your employee hasn't been logged in and hasn't manually chosen to get a electric copy of those statements, they need to get at least one statement a year out of a paper statement. So this is going to impact everybody. If you have any employees who aren't logging into the system, who are still contributing either to prevailing wage or whatever they want to do, then they will start getting statements at least once a year. Um, and it's going to impact all participants because if they haven't logged in, they're going to start seeing things in the mail. And it's also going to impact all admins because if we don't have addresses on file for them, you'll start getting emails from us letting you know that these things have to be mailed out and those actionable items need to be done during 2025.
Yep. And a couple things to hit on from the software. Again, broken record, but on that eBacon central page where folks go in to put in their time and attendance or can go in to look at their most recent pay stub, their W-2, their 401k forms, all of those are readily available on that front page, as well as the option to opt in, opt out. To Akil's point of employees' addresses and where they're on file, part of our software suite is we actually have the ability to, as an admin, go in and add those addresses for folks. So if it's one of those where you want to be able to pop those on and toss those in, that's part of the available software suite. I can see that we've got a couple questions coming in. Laura and Akil, do we want to take a second to really quickly talk through a couple of those guys? I see Jerry and Raina had a question.
I, I
So
think
I
Raina.
so let's go ahead and address the part-time, long-time question from Raina. Her question is it up to us if part-time workers can start early, or do they have to hit the certain number of hours before they can start?
That is entirely up to you, Raina. If your plan is just saying everybody can join once they work for 3 months, then that's going to impact your part-time and your full-time employees. The only thing that's going to impact your part-time employees if you have an hours work requirement. In general, most part-time employees work less than 1,000 hours. So if you have 1,000 hours requirement in your plan in a year, then your part-time employees wouldn't hit that. If you have, so that would be something up to you. You'd want to look at your plan and decide at what hour period do you want your part-time employees to be eligible. We have clientele that do a 600 hour basis already, so they're already covered a 500 basis every year. So once an employee's worked enough time, they become eligible. So that's really going to be something you want to think about if you are specifically looking into that option and deciding to decide how your plan is going to be structured for the coming year. And if you have the 401k through us, you can email us at 401k at eBacon.com, and me and my team would be happy to look at your plan documentation. I know you're all with us right now, and then we can say, hey, here's what your current requirement hours worked. Does it make sense for you, or do you want to update it?
Sounds good. Oh, sorry. Annual statements. We've fully covered annual statements, right? Everybody's good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Savers Match.
So this is going to be an item. So Laura was saying the majority of the stuff that's impacting Secure Act 2.0 for 401ks either already happened in the back end in 2024 and you guys don't have to worry about it, or are now rolling out in 2025. There are a couple of exceptions of that, and one of that is Savers Match, simply because the IRS hasn't decided how they're actually handling it yet. So at some point in 2025, they'll actually tell us how it's going to work, and then in starting in 2026, we'll actually be able to roll it out. But what Savers Match is, it is a replacement for something called Savers Credit. Beforehand, if you were a low-income household who was contributing into a 401k, and you could get a tax credit for what you were deferring or what you were receiving into your 401k, on top of whatever tax safeties you're able to get out of deferrals. The government's changing that into something called a savers match. So what is going to end up be happening now is if you're below that income house threshold in 2026 and ongoing, the government will actually say, hey, we will match 50% of employees' deferrals up to $1,000. So it's going to be a great opportunity for employees who don't make a lot of money to actually start getting more and more money into their retirement. This is going to impact participants whose households currently are under $71,000 in income, or single files who are less than $35,000. So it's going to impact almost all companies who have participants who are in that type of income range, and as such, because there's going to be some additional compliance and information we'll need to make sure is on systems and that's being properly updated, all 401k plan administrators will need to be aware of how this match works once the ILS finally gives us the finalized guidance.
Yep. And then taking it up from, how it works today. Today, right, there's not a current feature in the software because there's still guidance coming down from the federal government. So myself and the engineering team have been talking through how we're going to be implementing it, but a lot of it is going to depend on how it comes down from the government. But at the current level, that third bullet point, right, there's really little to no risk here on the part of the employers. Our assumption is that we'll be able to actually manage it and help dole it out and assign it through our current system. We're currently staying appraised of where that government guidance is at. And when we do get that guidance, we'll let you know what that process is going to look like. We'll send out that guidance to you as administrators, um, with the hope being, right, that a lot of these features that we're going to be able to roll out will be able to be baked into that software. I can see we've got some more questions coming in. I know we're about to go into the Q&A. Laura, if you want to take us over to the product offering slide, I'll hit on that really quickly and we'll just slide right into the Q&A. This one's super simple, folks. Really wanted to come up here and kind of talk quickly about what makes our product offering unique here at eBacon. Kind of the three tenets I want to hit on. I know I've hit on this throughout the call, but really that payroll and that 401k are seamlessly integrated so that when folks need to make those contributions, when it's time to do auto enrollment, when we look at the contribution limits, we're able to do those smart calculations from that payroll to make it really, really easy for the participants and for you as administrators so that the plans stay within compliance and folks are able to get the money where it needs to go. In addition, that secondary piece around the 401k administration being integrated into the eBacon platform, they're really right. There's no separate website. There's no separate login. Everything is integrated into the same place. Folks do their payroll and time and attendance. And then this final piece is if you're going through the process today as a client and you want to set up a new 401k plan, please reach out to us. We've specially designed easy enroll plans that are set up to be super simple to just pop up and then administer, right? A lot of the tax forms, there's not even a signature required from you as administrators. So we've specifically designed those to be super easy. Let's go over to the Q&A, Laura. Thank you.
Hi guys, I see a couple. I'm gonna answer Jerry's and Ella's question first. You guys are more both asking about how what we talked about relates to you guys, people who don't have a 401k managed through us. Some of the things will be impacting you guys. The one for based on the rules you give us for payroll contributions. But since a lot of the stuff that we talked about is TPA, what we call plan-specific features and requirements, and Logan talked about that integration between Payroll and 401k and our internal product. If you don't have a 401k through us, my recommendation is you reach out to your current provider and ask them how they're handling Secure Act 2.0. Um, Ideally, they will have webinars like we're doing that are going to walk you through how everything works, but they may not. And you might need to ask them, alrighty, if I have to do the opt-out feature, how does it work for me? When it comes to some of these other rules, how does it impact me and my plan? And how do I do it? As Logan and Laura have talked about, we have a lot of great systems already for reporting, so you'll be able to get those reports and work with your payroll, with your 401k provider. But since we aren't your 401k provider in those instances, you will need to talk to your current provider and see what they're going to be doing and how you need to work with that. And then I see Jason, you have a question about the um, catch up. So that's going to go into effect January 1st, 2025. As that guidance said, and as I kind of touched on, it's really going to impact clientele who give their employees an option of traditional and unlocked contributions. Currently, if you are I looked at the data before we jumped on this call. If you are having us as a 401k provider, 99.9% of our clientele have allowed their employees to make both traditional and locked contributions to the plan. So if you're one of those employers, then you would have to let your employees make lot contribution catch up when they're going to be required to do so.
So everyone, we are a little bit past our allotted time today. We really appreciate your time and attendance. For those of you that have additional questions that you weren't able to put into the chat for us today, please email us at 401k@ebacon.com. We're more than happy to have additional conversations and talk about how we can best support you through these legislative changes that are coming into effect in January, and then just for any other questions that you might have. As Logan shared, for those of you that don't currently have a 401k, we really have come together, put together a very simple, easy way for you to take advantage of all of the tax benefits of having a 401k, help your employees plan for the future, et cetera, and doing it in such a way that it's incredibly easy for you guys to manage, administer, maintain. Basically, there's not a whole lot for you to do. We've got the heavy lifting done, and we'll take care of it for you. So if you're at all interested in starting a 401k and you don't have one today, again, 401k@ebacon.com. We're happy to talk with you. So thank you all for joining. Appreciate you letting us go a little bit past our time, and we will be in touch again soon. Everybody have a great weekend.